Hi, second graders. So we're going to hop right into our first math lesson of summer school. What you're going to need is something to write with and something to write on. So that could be a piece of paper, it could be a coloring book, it could be a notebook, it could be a chalkboard. I have a whiteboard and a marker. So pause the video, go grab those things, unpause when you're ready. Ready? Okay. So today we're going to be talking about bar graphs, how to create a bar graph, and we're going to talk about answering questions related to the bar graph and the data that we have. I love bar graphs. They give us a lot of information and we can find out a lot of things from them. So we're just going to go over that today. Okay, first things first. Here's our first problem. So this is going to be a graph of the number of books that 3 different students read. We have Jose, Laura, and Linda. Now, what I'm noticing right away is that Linda doesn't have any tally marks under her name. Well, Jose and Laura do. So I'm kind of thinking in my head, I wonder if that's something we're going to have to solve for. I'm also noticing the tally marks. Now remember, tally marks are used in groups of 5, are shown in groups of 5. So we have Jose here. He has a group of 5, so I'm just going to scoop that up and count that on. So I have 5, 6, 7, 8. So Jose read 8 books, and Laura read 1, 2, 3, 4 books. Okay? And then I see our graph over here. They already have a title on the graph, number of books read, and our 3 students' names on the bottom, Jose, Laura, and Linda. So it looks like we're going to have to figure out the scale on the side here, and then graph it. So let's see what this problem is asking. It says, draw a tape diagram to show how many more books Jose read than Laura. First step. Okay, so a tape diagram. So I'm going to use a J to represent Jose. Now Jose read 8 books and Laura read 4. So Jose read more books than Laura. So I'm going to draw a larger part of a tape diagram for Jose. And then I'm going to use an L for Laura. And Laura read 4, which I know is half of 8. Using my doubles facts, and there's my tape diagram. So I know right here there's a space for how many more books than that Jose read, and I know that's going to be 4, because 4 plus 4 equals 8. Next step. Oh, I don't know why that says 5. It should be 4. Okay. Oh, now they changed it to 5, so we'll change it to 5 on our thing. Silly PowerPoint. So Laura read 5, and they told us that that was 3. Give us the answer. Okay, we'll switch it up a little bit. Step 2. If Jose, Laura, and Linda read a total of 21 books, so our total of tallies here is going to be 21. They read 21 altogether. How many books did Linda read? So right now, we know that Jose read 8. This graph now shows that Laura read 5, so we're just going to roll with that. It's fine. Laura read 5 books, so we have 5 and 8 so far. That's the only information we know. So what I'm going to do is take Laura and Jose and add those 2 together, because that's going to give us a starting point. So we have Laura and Jose is 8 plus 5. And what's 8 plus 5? It's going to give us 13. So now we need to figure out how many books Linda read. Do you think I'm going to add the 13 to this 21 total or subtract? What do you think? Well, let's set up a problem to figure it out. So what we know is that so far we have 13 books that we know of. Jose and Laura read 13 books. Now, I don't know how many books Linda read, so I'm going to put a little line there, because I have no idea. But I know that the total needs to equal 21. So I set up my problem that way. I know we have 13. I don't know how many Linda read. I know Jose and Laura read 13. I don't know how many Linda read, but I know they all read 21. So I need to figure out this missing number here. So there are a couple different ways we can do that. We can add up or we can subtract. Go ahead and solve that on your own. I'm going to solve it on mine. Pause the video as you need. And I'm going to solve, and then we'll come back together. You ready? Okay, so let's go through it on here. We know that 8 plus 5 is 13 because we solved for Jose and Laura. They read 13 books altogether. We still need to figure out what Linda read. So they set up their problem the same way. We know the 13, that's our known, and we know the 21, but we need that missing number there. So how did you solve for the 8? Go ahead and share with me right now or share with somebody at home. How did you solve for that missing number? Good. So in my mind, I thought 21 minus 13. That's how I figured it out. And I solved, and I got 8. So we know that Linda read 8 books. Go ahead on your paper and show me how we would write 8 as a tally. Remember, tallies are in groups of 5. So start with that 5 and then count on. How are we going to show 8 as a tally? When you're ready, show it to me and I'll show you mine. We have 5, 6, 7, 8. Ta-da! Okay. And that's how it is. Now, our next step is to finish the graph. What we have are tallies. So we have Jose read 8, Laura read 5, Linda read 8. So on our side here, do you think we should count by 1s, count by 2s, count by 5s? What do you think is the best way that we should scale our side? We have 2 8s and a 5. I'm thinking 1s would probably be fine because we have pretty low numbers. So we'll count by 1s up on the side. And then what we need to do is color in however many squares of the number of books. Each square is going to represent 1 book. So how many squares are we going to color in for Jose? 8, good. How many for Laura? 5, good. And how many for Linda? 8 again. Very good. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Beautiful. And there's our chart. Now, what do you notice is different about this chart than this chart? This one and this one. It's just flipped on its side, right? Same information. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 5, and 8. Same information as this chart. It's just flipped on its side. So we didn't change anything. Now, what do you notice about what this kind of looks like compared to another thing we've been using in our math lessons? I'll draw you a little picture to see if it rings a bell. Go ahead and discuss with someone at home. What does this kind of look like? What we've been using in a lot of our math lessons. Does it look a little bit like a tape diagram? So we have this space right here where we can use to figure out the difference between the numbers, but it's the same kind of concept. We have 8, 5, 8, and it's sideways, just like this graph, using the same information using different pictures to show the same information. So, we're going to move on and graph something else. So I have this graph right here that I made already. Let me see if I can move this down a little bit so you can see. Okay, so as you know, animals can be classified into different categories. So we have birds, mammals that are warm-blooded, reptiles like cold-blooded, and fish. So I went around and I just named a bunch of animals and I classified them. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 birds, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mammals, 5 reptiles, and 3 fish. Each circle represents one different animal. So from this graph, you can see how many mammals, how many reptiles, how many fish, how many birds I have. Now, let's turn this graph on its side. And it's going to give us the same information. So, I have our tallies up top, and we're going to create it. Every graph needs a title. So the title of this graph is Animal Classification. So we're going to put that right on the top right away. Now, on our side, we're going to label all of the different categories, the different animals. Okay, so we have birds, mammals, reptiles, and fish. Every graph needs a title, and it needs those categories on the side. Now, on the bottom, we have to figure out our scale. So we have 4, 8, 5, and 3. Do you think we should count by 1s, 2s, 5s, 10s? What do you think, based on our numbers? We have pretty small numbers, right? So let's count by 1s. We'll just keep going up. Boop, 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 boop. Good. Now remember, when you do this, you need to make sure that you have enough for your biggest number. So our biggest number here is 8, and we get 12 lines, so we're good. Our next step is going to be counting the tally marks and then coloring the number of boxes. You're going to go sideways. So our first graph, we went up and down. We're going to go sideways on this one. So for birds, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll keep going. Mammals, we have 8, coloring 8 boxes. Reptiles, 5, and fish, 3. And there's our graph, and it looks like a tape diagram. Now, now we can use this graph. Oh, you can't see my scale on the bottom. I'm so sorry. There's the scale. I'm sorry you couldn't see that. On the bottom here is our scale, and it goes up to 12 because our highest number is 8. I'm sorry you couldn't see that before. So using this graph, we can answer a lot of questions. So which animal do we have the most of? Mammals. Good. And you can easily see that because it's the longest bar. Which animal do we have the fewest of? Good. Fish. And you can easily tell that because it's the shortest bar. Now I'm going to get a little more intense. Get your paper and your pencil out so we can solve for these. Okay. Next question. How many more mammals are there than reptiles? What I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a tape diagram. So there are 8 mammals and 5 reptiles. Now, my tape diagram kind of looks like the picture here, right? So I can see there's a space right here where mammals are longer than reptiles. So a couple different ways I can do this. I can just count the boxes, right? 1, 2, 3. There are 3 more mammals than reptiles. Or I can solve. So I need to get to 8. Solve for that missing number, and we get 3. Either way. All right, I want you to try this one on your own. So how many fewer birds than reptiles? How many fewer birds than reptiles? Pause the video and solve. Come back when you're ready. You ready? So if I look at my graph here, I see birds has 4, reptiles has 5. I want to know how many less, how many fewer, reptiles. If I go up and I pretend mammals isn't there, I see a square here that's not filled in. So I know there's 1 fewer reptile than bird. Another way to figure that out is to look at the graph and see there are 4 birds, 5 reptiles, and you can use different addition subtraction problems to solve. So there is 1 fewer bird than reptile. Ta-da! All right, so now we're going to get into our problem set. I'm going to go through this with you because you're going to be creating a graph on your own. Now, I put this in a Google Doc for you. However, if technology is not your thing, as you can see from some parts of my video, it's not really my thing, you're welcome to do this on paper and then send me a picture of it. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a graph just like we just did on the PowerPoint with this information. So put your name on the top. Oops, don't do that. Your title is going to be the same title on the top of this little graph here. Now, I outlined this graph for you. If you want to do it on paper, because that makes more sense to you, be my guest. So you're going to take the information from the graph, from the chart up here, and put it in the graph. So, to color in a square, what you need to do, and it might be over here with the 3 dots, is to find this little paint can thing. You can pick any color you want. And pick a color, It'll color in that square for you. So I see there's 6 birds, so I need to color in 6. Computer's a little slow. 6 squares across. So I'll just keep going across until there's 6. Okay, you're going to do that for all of your animals. Make that bar graph. Again, easier on paper, go right ahead. Then if you scroll down, there are 3 questions for you to answer. You can use tape diagrams, you can use the graph, you can use addition and subtraction sentence, however you want to solve them, go right ahead. Alright? If you have any questions or technical difficulties or anything along those lines, let me know. Be careful with these questions. A lot of them are going to be 2-part questions where you're both going to need to add and subtract. Okay? Don't just add automatically. Read the problem, figure out what it's asking you to do, and add or subtract as needed. If you have questions, let me know. I know you'll do fabulous. I'm very excited to see your graphs, and I will see you next time.